She's got some superpowers for us. Um, so anyway, it is 10 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started then for those of us who are tight on time and want to learn some more about the new news that is in consumer-driven health accounts. We have given this webinar a couple times before in the past, but it was more of a general overlay of what consumer-driven health accounts are. Now I want to spend a little more time about what is going to be different for them this year, because I'm sure a lot of our agents have been working with these for a couple years now. So now I just want to tell you, because they're a little more popular coming up in 2026, what they are going to look like for us in 2026. Most of the audience has been here before, but if you don't know me, my name is Chelsea Gomez. I am your one and only learning development specialist here at Action Benefits, and I love teaching you about how to either better serve or better grow your business or your clients. And joining me is the one and only Randy Lober. Randy, give the audience what they want before we continue.
I am the only one in Randy Lober working here, and I think there's only like three of us in the entire country. It's fun to go Google yourself sometimes and figure out what comes up. Anyway, growth marketing manager here at Action Benefits, and just like Chelsea, part of my role, in fact, the biggest part of my role is helping you all grow your books of business, and part of doing that is making sure that you can talk in really the simplest terms about the benefits your clients might purchase with your support and help them make some good decisions about what types of levers they can pull to really make their health plans more affordable. Chelsea's leading the show here today, but I'm happy to help her answer any questions. Please use the chat, the Q&A, or raise your hand, I suppose, and we'll figure out a way to get an answer to you in a timely fashion. But take it away, Chelsea, and tell us everything you know about consumer-driven health, and maybe leave some people ask questions
Some
about
stuff for
it
you to say.
too.
Right.
Right.
So I will say I took a glance at the audience while Randy was introducing himself, and it is a higher level audience for the most part today. So please ask any questions that you have. I'm going to try to keep, or I should say just a more experienced audience. I meant the other way around. But I'm going to double check that to make sure. So what statement best describes you? Your chat is automatically set up to talk to just Randy and myself. So you don't have to put yourself on blast if you don't want to expose yourself as being a newbie, but that's okay. We're a very friendly group here. So if you'd like to talk to everyone in the webinar, you could switch that to everyone or just have it stay at hosted panelists. And please let us know which statement best describes you, whether you're brand new to the industry and you did come here for some of that very basic understanding, which is totally fine. I love doing that as well. Or if you are a time traveler and are just here to tell us more about what is actually going to happen in 2026, because there are a couple slides here today that unfortunately, even with my refreshing things right at 7:50 something this morning to see, we do not know for sure if what is going to happen. So if you are a time traveler and do know those things, please let us know, because man, would that be a great asset to our webinars. But judging by their responses, it does seem like we have a more experienced audience today. So like I said, please ask any questions that you have.
But no time travelers. So
Yeah,
there's that.
I mean, don't embarrass us, but like just give us just let us know what's happening, but just don't make us look like we don't know what we're talking about. Okay, so most of us have some sort of idea of these three types of accounts because you've worked with them before. So I started with this one because most of us do know these definitions, probably to some extent already. The three types of accounts that you can interact with within the health insurance world. We have health savings accounts, HSAs, health reimbursement accounts, HRAs, or arrangements. I've heard both thrown around for that A there, and flexible spending accounts, FSAs. So the main differences are kind of highlighted on your screen here today. We will go into a little more detail. But health savings accounts are used by anyone except for Medicare recipients. They generally pay for and are meant to save for healthcare costs, and they are able to roll over annually and do have a maximum contribution limit. And a health reimbursement arrangement is similar, but the key difference is that they are only for those with employer coverage, because the employer does fund the account. And they do have to be used within the year. There is no rollover. We'll learn about why momentarily. And then we have the flexible spending accounts, which are for employers and employees. They pay costs within 1 year, and there is some rollover potential, but that doesn't always happen with those accounts. So we have a little bit of difference between each one, but these are the three that you're going to see, and we're going to talk about today when referencing a consumer-driven health account. So we'll start by talking about HSA's health savings accounts. So health savings accounts are limited accounts paying for current qualified medical expenses, and they are meant to save for future qualified expenses. So they are going to pay for things like over-the-counter items and fees charged by providers and pharmacies. They can also help you save for those future ones, like we said before. And they can help save for retiree expenses. But the thing here to remember is that once you become eligible for Medicare by turning 65, you can't contribute to this account anymore. The money doesn't go away, it still belongs to you, and you can still use the account, but you can no longer contribute to it. It is designed for those of us who are not currently using Medicare, but again, the money does not go away once you turn 65. The account doesn't zero. That doesn't happen. You still have that money available. You can use it to save for health-related expenses, to use in your retirement. However, you cannot contribute to it once you get into that Medicare territory. So make sure if you have any clients who are about to turn 65, maybe you're in their early 60s, start letting them know that those accounts are no longer going to be able to be contributed to, so they can make some decisions about either how they want to continue to use that account just as a savings for their health expenses, or if they want to use it up, or if they want to hit that limit, whatever their goals are.
Yeah, I'm gonna push up my glasses here just for a minute too, and get a little bit nerdy with that. So one thing to keep in mind, especially as we talk about contributions and the Medicare age that Chelsea introduced to us there, is that rules differ slightly depending on when you enroll in Medicare. So if, for example, I am turning 65 in February or whatnot, I can contribute right up until I become eligible for Medicare and enroll in Medicare Part A without any tax penalties or anything of the sort. But if I choose to enroll, maybe I work till 68 and I don't pick up Part A until I turn 68. Medicare Part A can be retroactive and often is retroactively effective for 6 months. So if there are any HSA contributions within those 6 months prior to me enrolling in Medicare Part A, any of those contributions inside those 6 months would be subject to a 6% excise tax. In short, a tax penalty for making it contributing when you weren't supposed to. So for those of you who have folks who have clients that work past 65, it's important to strategize with them about when they should stop their HSA contributions going forward.
Yes, good point, good call. Especially when as these are expanding, more people are getting involved in the process, I'm getting ahead of myself though. Okay, so some quick facts about HSAs. I'm not going to talk about every single fact because, like I said, there's a lot of people who are more seasoned in here. I don't want to give you too much information that you already know, but these are paired with high deductible health plans. So you cannot just stick an HSA account onto just any old health insurance plan. It does have to be a high deductible plan. But we'll talk about more about that momentarily, about the limits that go along with those, of what counts as a high deductible health plan. My clients seem to think that $5 is a high deductible. Yeah, I get it, I know, but like we'll get to the limits in a second. Can be offered with both group and individual plans. So you will see those, whether you are working over with our co-broker arrangement, whether you are working with the individual market, you will see those available. But of course, like we said, not Medicare plans. The funds do travel with the account owner, also known as our portable. So if you have an HSA account, you contribute, let's say $1,000 to it with your employer, and then you decide you no longer want to work for that employer, go somewhere else, that money doesn't go away, that money goes with you. Now you might have to pay some maintenance fees to that account, depending on how they work. That's going to be it, depending on exactly what health, I think with Blue Cross, we have health equity. Depending on what account we choose or what type of account you have, the rules of the account change slightly, but you might have to pay a little bit of a maintenance fee if you move with that account and are no longer with that employer plan.
A word on that portability, and for those, this is I'm talking for both to our co-broker partners here, but also those who, service people who come off of that group coverage or come out of that HSA plan, is there are untold millions of dollars sitting in unused HSAs simply because they're the employer or the employee when they move plans, or the individual enrollee who had that HSA and maybe they moved to a non-HSA eligible plan later on. They just kind of forget about that money, right? Because there's no out of sight, out of mind. They're no longer contributing from it. So please, 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 whenever you are counseling someone as they either change plans or move to a non-HSA plan or move from one employer to another, that they do take those funds with them and actively take care of them. So they're there to use and they can be used to pay for healthcare going forward.
Yeah, don't forget about that money. We have a question. If someone turns 65 and chooses not to enroll in Medicare, can they continue contributing to their HSA? No, they have, once they turn 65, that's it. Right?
So you may continue contributing penalty free until you enroll in Medicare Part A. It just so happens, though, that in many of our group situations, though, because of their size and because of carrier underwriting requirements, that most folks do automatically enroll in Medicare Part A, or do take action rather to enroll in Medicare Part A right away. So in that case, they'd want to not contribute past that time. Medicare Part A, they enroll in Medicare Part A. Hope that helps.
Cool. Okay, so deposits, qualified withdrawals, and qualified investment earnings are tax-free. That is the biggest reasoning and chunk of to why these accounts are going to be valuable for your clients. So there is a triple tax advantage to utilizing these accounts, in comparison to, say, just keeping the money in a regular account or savings account, something like that. Medicare enrollees cannot contribute, but their funds do still belong to them. We talked about that before. And employees, employers, other people can contribute to these accounts. So these accounts can be contributed to by like if you have let's say someone in your, like a friend of yours is going to have a surgery and you want to contribute to that account because it's going to be a big cost for them. You can go ahead and throw some money in that person's account. The employers can put a chunk in at the beginning of every year or monthly or however they'd like to do that, as long as it remains under that limit of how much can be put in the account, which we will talk about in a moment. So what kind of expenses qualify? Medical procedures, dental care, vision care, some medications, medical equipment, and some over-the-counter treatments. Every plan is going to be different. The accounts are generally intended to cover these things, though. So I would advise you to check with your HSA administrator to determine exactly what's covered and what's not. But this is overarchingly what these accounts are designed to do, is to cover these types of things. So the limits for these have changed. They change every year. At the entire time I've worked in the healthcare industry, they have increased over time. So these are the limits that the deductible has to be in order to be considered high enough for an HSA plan. So in order to enroll in an HSA plan, you need to have a deductible that is at least $1,700 if it is just you, or $3,400 for families. The annual out-of-pocket expenses can't exceed $8,500 for self-coverage or $17,000 for family coverage. And remember, these are in place for both employer group plans and for individual plans.
And you may see, well, especially looking at individual product menus where you see out-of-pocket maxes up in the 21,000s and so on and so forth. Those plans aren't HSA eligible. They're not designed to be paired with an HSA in that case. So even though a plan can have a high deductible by the definition on the first line here, the actuarial work behind it and whatnot, whether or not the carrier chooses to make that particular plan HSA compatible, is influenced by what you see down below. So you can see high deductible plans with a high deductible that are not HSA compatible, and there's some legal and actuarial maneuvering that happens behind the scenes to make that determination.
Well, there also are some new contribution limits. This year, for a individual to use that account at its maximum to put as much money as possible, they would be limited to putting in $4,400 for just themselves. And for a family, it would be $8,750. And this is the highest that you can contribute into these accounts in 2026. However, you can add in an additional $1,000 if you are catching up. If you are someone who is over 55, you can put in an extra $1,000 to catch up to that amount, because the idea is that you've had less amount of time to contribute to that account. If you're over 55 and opening that account for the first time is usually what they are getting at with this additional $1,000 added in for those over 55. This amount is the same regardless of who is contributing. So it is not that the individual who owns the account can put in that 4 grand, 4,400, and then the employer can add another amount. Nope, it doesn't matter who is contributing the amount. That amount is the same for the account itself, not for the contributions into the account, if that makes sense. So what is new for 2026 for HSAs? HSAs are now expanded to cover marketplace bronze and catastrophic plans. Up until last year, it had to be a silver high deductible health plan to have an HSA paired with it. But now just about every client that you have with marketplace coverage is going to be able to score an HSA with their marketplace plan. So a lot of your clients, if they're new to HSAs, are going to hopefully be interested in contributing maybe some of the money they saved by moving their to a less rich benefited plan, to a bronze plan, maybe saving some of those premium dollars into that account that they would save going down to that plan, or maybe they would just like to contribute monthly, or maybe they want to throw a little bit in from their tax refund into that account. They're going to be new to these accounts, right? More people are going to be utilizing these than before. So you're going to want to be ready to answer questions revolving around these plans that are now able to have these accounts. So it's estimated that about 283,000 new enrollees in Michigan will be eligible for HSAs that were not eligible before. And I don't think that this is going to be the sole reason that someone is going to sign up for a health insurance plan if they were not using health insurance before. It's not like, oh, now I have this plan, I'm going to be jumping on the bandwagon. I'm sure that the health insurance coverage is going to be the reason they're signing up for the health insurance plan. But you are going to be someone who is putting that extra value in front of your clients when you show them the additional ways that they can save some money with their plan, with these types of accounts, right? You are putting yourself in front of them as that expert that can give them a little more value for their time and effort in getting that insurance plan. And that steps you ahead of other agents, right? So what's on the horizon for HSAs in the future? Now, again, I mentioned how there's some things that we're not completely sure of as of this point. As we know, and as you probably heard and have heard from us, if you've been in our previous webinars a jillion times, we're not completely exactly sure what is going to happen with these subsidies. They're still up in the air. They were voting on them, what, like 2, 3 days ago in the House. They were voting on them a couple days ago in the House, or they did. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but one of the ways that has been proposed to kind of replace subsidies in the future is to put that money that was going to be utilized for advanced premium tax credit into an HSA for that individual instead of applying that towards the premiums. That is, again, I'm not saying that is going to happen, but that is something that is has been floated around as an option. So if that happens, I as an agent would probably start making sure my clients understood the importance of these accounts, right? Because they're going to hear about if this does go into fruition, they're going to hear about that money, want to know where it's going, how to utilize it, how it works, and having those accounts set up in advance would be a great way to make sure that that goes more smoothly if that is something that does end up happening. Again, still being voted on. But either way, these accounts are a great way to kind of save some of those tax dollars for your clients and have something on the back burner in case there is a medical expense that that person might have. I saw a hand raised, but it's not very risen anymore. Okay. So if that there was a question, just go ahead and put it in the chat. But if you are looking to educate your clients on HSAs, of course, you can utilize if you are in our co-broker arrangement, you have some co-broker or you have some employer group accounts. You can use the stuff that is provided by Blue to educate on that member plan. Or we have created some materials for you and we have been working hard behind the scenes to customize them for you. I believe the email went out yesterday, 2 days ago, yesterday. Yeah. About this educational flyer and we can customize that one on, I don't know if your screen is flipped or not. It's on my left. But the one on the left there that the action benefits one, we can change that one up to have it match your agency, and you can use that to educate your new individual or employer group clients about how to use those HSA accounts to their tax advantage. Right. So now let's check really quick. Again, in the chat, I'm going to put you to work. Your client is excited to use this new HSA account to save up to $5,000 for a dental procedure. What do you advise him? You don't have to put yourself on blast if you don't want to. Like I said, your chat is automatically set up to send messages just to Randy and myself. So please go ahead and use the chat and answer the question to make sure that I explained it to the best of my abilities and you are, as my former students might say, picking up what I'm putting down. Or if you really are confident in your answer, you could put it in front of everyone to show that you know what we're talking about here. I'm going to take a sip of water really quick, or put your questions in the chat. So if you read the question intensely, you would have seen that I did say him in the question, so we can assume that it is an individual. So the answer I was looking for here is D. You could not save up that total $5,000 using the using that HSA account because the limits for single submissions is 4,400.
So it depends a lot on how you read this question and the time scale you're looking at here, right? If we also recall that HSA funds roll over, they grow, they grow, they grow, they grow, they grow. They don't just like time out and wipe away at any time. He could, in fact, save that $5,000 over several years, right? If this year's limit is 4,400, he also puts some money into the account next year. He might be in pain for a while with the dental procedure, but it's possible he could pull that entire $5,000 out once he's accrued it within his HSA. He gets to contribute it tax-free, he gets to use it tax-free, and whatever interest he gained on that $5,000 also grows tax-free. So it depends on what you view as the time scale of the question. It's technically possible for it to be A, if you look over the scale of a few years.
I'm hoping I would, as his agent, I'm not a doctor, but as his agent, I probably would advise him to not wait all that time if he needs a $5,000 dental procedure. I don't think that he would want to wait that long. But I mean, like, yes, you could over that amount of time save it. But I was under the idea like he ain't gonna want to wait all that save all that up in that account at that point. over a year, but true. You could technically roll it over the course of a couple years. But dental is a qualifying, I try to go over all the wrong answers too. Dental is a qualifying medical expense. So yes, you could, I would not tell him, there we go, to use the account for the dental expenses. And HSAs don't have networks. So there wouldn't be a network in which to double check. So unless we have any questions with HSAs, we're going to go ahead and go on to HRAs. I didn't see any other questions in the chat. So HRAs are kind of similar to HSAs, but there are a few key differences. So health reimbursement arrangements, or HRAs, provide a vehicle for employers to make additional contributions to employees' health care costs. These savings accounts are completely employer funded, so no money is contributed by the employee or by anybody else, unlike HSAs. And these reimburse employees up to a fixed amount. And these arrangements are tax-free for both the employer and the employee. In our experience, these tend to be a way that the employer can kind of tax-free on both ends, give a little bit extra to their employees in helping them with medical costs. I've seen, well, for us personally, we get our deductibles paid this way through our employer. This could also be a way that the employer could help pitch into a really expensive medical procedure, like if one of their employees had a baby, or if they have an expensive surgery, or they have to recover from an injury, put money in that HRA to pay for some of those costs that might be accumulating from those events. So they could be used to pay medical procedure bills, co-pays or deductibles, medication costs, hospital stays, and some OTC items. But keep in mind the the employer does own that money. So it does end up being for the most part, is determined by the employer what that money can and cannot be used for. So fun HRA facts is this is a tax-free account that supports employees, and it keeps the coverage management with the employer. Funds are loaded into the account again, as for the most part, as the employer sees fit. So that can be a yearly schedule, a weekly schedule, or a monthly schedule, or however they want to do it. If you just say, "Oh my employer's having a baby, I want to help them out. Here's throw some money in that account," is also an option. But a lot of them tend to do it on a schedule. Account is managed by HR and HRA administrator, so the money is managed by the employer and by any other supporting administration there. And again, like I mentioned before, the funds do belong to the employer. So, translations, they're not portable, right? They're going to stay with that employer. If that employee does choose to quit, they don't get to take that money with them. It goes back to the employer and other way around. If they choose to load all that money at the beginning of the year to that employee and say, hey, you get $1,000, let's say over the year, to utilize, they can't ask for any of that money back after it's been spent either. So if they choose to spend all that money at the beginning of the year, the employer can't say, hey, you owe me that money back. You can't do that. You might have heard, if you are a group agent, a little bit more about these individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, or ICRAs. And this is an HRA that gives a tax-free allowance from employers to employees to buy health insurance, and it allows for other medical expenses to be covered as well. It is a type of HRA, as you can probably tell by the name of it, but these are designed to kind of give an amount to an employee from the employer to go purchase health care for themselves. And then if there's extra money, it can be used for other health related expenses, but that is kind of what it's designed for. These are becoming a lot more popular, but we'll talk a little bit more about that momentarily. So some fun facts about ICRAs. ICRAs can be paired with traditional group coverage, but must be applied to different classes. So meaning that, let's say you're running a restaurant and the management of the restaurant is all full-time employees, but your wait staff their part-time employees. And you want to give some health coverage to both, but you know that it's going to cost a lot of money to give health coverage to all of those employees. And you want to set it up a little differently because the part-time employees are managed a little differently, right? You would establish different classes of those coverages, and you could give full-time coverage to those that management staff of your restaurant, and then you could supply an ICRA to your part-time employees, and they could utilize some of that money to go get coverage, whether that be on or off marketplace as they choose. Premium tax credits cannot be offered with an ICRA if the ICRA makes the coverage affordable. So what that means is you cannot have both your premium tax credits from the marketplace and an ICRA at the same time. You cannot take both of those things. If an employee chooses to, they can choose to waive the ICRA and take advantage of their premium tax credits if they so choose, but they cannot take both. Premium tax credits, however, can apply for dependents, excuse me, if the ICRA does not extend to them. So inadvertently, you can read from that that ICRAs can be applied to both the family or just the employee. And so then if the ICRA applies just to the employee and the family is not included in that ICRA, the family does not lose their premium tax credits. They would still get that tax credit and they could go on the marketplace to then purchase themselves coverage if they so chose to do that. These can be used by employers of all sizes, unlike the QSERA, which was designed for smaller businesses, which is we'll talk about later. There are no participation requirements, unlike some of the group health plans you might interact with. Some of them require around 75% participation. There is no need for a participation requirement with an ICRA. This ICRA and the ICRA itself would be managed either by the agent, by the group itself, or by a third party, depending on how you would like to roll that out. So I mentioned QSERAs. We're not going to talk a ton about these. They're very similar to ICRAs, but a QSERA, like I said, is a qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangement. And this is another version of an HRA that also gives a tax-free allowance to employees to buy health insurance and also allows for other medical expenses to be covered. However, you must be a small group and be 50 employees or under to qualify for this. The IRA does set limits on the amount that can be allotted to each employee with these. And these can be used for on or off marketplace coverage or help pay for an MAPD if that is the case. So ICRAs and QSERAs are more popular now than they ever have been. They were invented in 2019 with QSERAs precursing them slightly in 2017, which is why they do kind of seem a little redundant, but that's because one came before the other. The use of ICRAs has increased 1,000% since 2020. 260,000 US employees offered ICRAs or QSERAs last year. 13,000 businesses participated in an ICRA, and they cover about 500,000 to 1 million lives in the US. And those figures are from 2025, from last year, from the HRA Council. So the use of them are getting more popular. More businesses are probably going to be asking you about these. So it's going to be important that you at least can answer some of the basic questions that I'm going over today. What is it? What does it do? Why might this be something my business is interested in? Stuff like that.
And I think it's important to realize, especially if you double dip in both co-broker and individual business, that on the individual side, the two largest players remaining in the under 65 market in Michigan, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Michigan Priority Health, they are both or have released in their individual portfolios kind of plans that are built to be compatible with ICRAs. They're more benefit rich than other marketplace plans that either carrier offers or other under 65 plan offers. And it's really trying to give that employee a similar experience to what they might see in that group plan, but on the individual basis. It's their way of trying to make up that difference, right? We all know that as a rule, group benefits are more rich, more robust, whatever our word you want to call them than individual plans might be. You're starting to see carriers really recognize this trend and see where the wind is blowing in terms of how they design their portfolios.
Yes, so while this might not be something that you are ripper and ready to go out there and sell to your groups, it is something you at least want to know what it is. So in case you get asked these questions, you can answer them and take it from there. Oh, that's what the slide says. We already talked about that. So, knowledge check again. Your clients expressed interest in an ICRA because they heard it would save them some money. Which of these things have they heard is true? Go ahead and use your touch tone laptop or keyboard to put the answer in now. And if you are, I have to look over my second monitor here, but yes, looks like we're getting right answers again. Yes. A and B are the correct answers. Costs are really easy to control, right? Because you just put an amount into an account. That's how much they get. End of story. You know exactly how much you're going to be spending. So it's a really easy sell there for employers who are on a budget. And each employee can choose their own ACA compliant plan. So there is no, they get the freedom, I guess, to kind of pick what they need to do. There's no adhering to one plan and feeling like, oh, the pressure is on for that employer to pick exactly which plan they think is going to work for every single one of their employees. This gives them the freedom to say, hey, go do what you want to do. Pick something on that's as long as it's ACA compliant, you can pick it and go out there and choose what you would like. C
And
is not correct. You cannot get your tax advantage premium tax credits and use the ICRA at the same time, unless, of course, like we said, you have dependents and they're not covered by the ICRA. And then, as we know, ICRAs do need to be managed. Like somebody's got to figure out where that money is going and how it's going to be distributed. So there is a management aspect to that. So there is a solution that would be needed to manage that ICRA.
right, and aside from that management requirement, someone's got to, fund the account. Someone's got to actually, work on the compliance stuff. It sounds like a great deal up front, right? I have a predictable budget as an employer. Employees have the freedom. I don't have to worry about administering the group health plan. A lot of people who get excited about that when they first hear about that. That makes it, especially for some of the smaller groups you might work with, that probably sounds good, feels good as a message going forward. And if that group has offered insurance before, especially on a group benefit, and maybe they were giving employees a relatively small allowance compared to premiums, individual premiums, gosh, you go see stories now, they're anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a month, depending on what you're doing. If the allowance isn't at least as good as what the employer was contributing to the employer sponsored coverage, and the benefits aren't as good either because it's a marketplace plan as compared to what you would have seen from that group. Employees are going to have a fairly sour taste in their mouths with that experience. They're not going to love that change, and it may end up costing the owner or the business, the firm, more in employee retention and attraction when making that switch. So like a lot of things, it does sound good on paper. And when we say cost control and freedom, gosh, those sound like good things too. But buyer very much beware in this case because the employee experience changes significantly and not always for the better when a NICRA is adopted.
There's a lot of learning curve there. I can speak from just personal experience with friends who ask me, "Oh, you work in health insurance. How come my health insurance is doing this?" And I don't, and I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm like, "Oh, why? That's weird." Like, "Oh, because you have an ICRA because you." So every person's plan. I'm like, "Well, my coworker's plan did that. How come mine's doing this?" Oh, because you have an ICRA, you picked a different plan than your employer, other than your coworker did. So yeah, and yes, your employer funded that. So they're going to so they probably a lot of times are going to not understand what this ICRA is and come to your HR department asking questions about the health plan, and that somebody's going to have to be there to answer those questions or at least direct someone to where those questions need to get answered. So yes, the front loading of it sounds really good, but there is some other things on the back end that would have to get done to make sure that this works. And it not to say that there's a terrible solution by any stretch of the imagination, but there's your pros and cons with both sides, right? Okay, so our final type of consumer-driven health account today, the FSA. So the flexible spending account, or the FSA, is a savings account that allows employees to set aside money on a pre-tax basis for qualified medical expenses, including medical, dental, vision, deductibles, co-pays, and co-insurance. So now it sounds kind of similar to the HSA, but there are some differences. They can be paired with any health plan, not just a high deductible plan like you might have heard with the HSA. Employers can only contribute up to a certain amount. Um, Unlike the HSA, where all the funds roll over, only some funds can roll over from year to year. And funds that do not roll over end up going back to the employer. So that is another key difference between the HSA and the FSA is depending on how the accounts are set up, there are some plans that will allow a grace period. There also are some plans that allow a rollover. You cannot have both the rollover and the grace period, however, and those things are up to the plan itself. So you're going to want to get with the plan administrator and the account administrator to know exactly what is going to apply to which accounts. But those are, the money at the end of the day is the employer's. So there is some new limits to these accounts. So there is a $3,400 limit in the account for individuals and the $7,500 limit for the household. And if plans do have carrier or carryovers, like we just talked about, the maximum carryover is $680. And again, can't have the grace period and the carryover. But if they do have a carryover, that's how much they can carry over. So you, as the agent, are going to want to make these accounts easy. So just like the HSAs are one of those tools in your tool belt to kind of sell the accounts and the plans to your clients, these FSAs are also there to do that, and they cannot utilize them properly unless they're educated in which to do so. Every time we talk about FSAs, I tell this story back when I was teaching and I had an account with an FSA. I had no idea what it was. I would just get a letter in the mail every January, not know how to use it, get confused, and then just spend the entire thing on allergy pills because I just was like, well, that's, I know I can use it for that. Done, move on with life. You want to make sure that those accounts are much better utilized for your clients than I did with mine. So for you, this is not a new, necessarily a new partnership. We have been working a partnership with iSolved for about a year now, with us with Action with iSolved. But for those of you who are renewing for the first time, this might be the first time that iSolved is a solution that you could talk to your groups about. For some of you, that's not the case because you might have already renewed since we started this partnership with iSolved. But for some of us, this might be the first time that you can comfortably talk about this solution to your clients and have Action as a support process for you. So they are able to do a lot of these things that you see on your screen for your groups, such as managing those FSA dollars and those HSA dollars like we talked about before, doing that COBRA compliance stuff, which we know if you've ever had a COBRA experience, you know that can get a little hairy. So all of that is available with the iSolved partnership. And then I thought it was really nifty that they have partnerships with the FSA store and the HSA store, so you can avoid the issue that I had where you're not sure what is covered and what's not. What can I use it for? How do I know I have the money in the account? Stuff like that. That those kind of problems would be mitigated, if not completely solved, by some of these stores that can make sure that you're spending that money on things that can be eligible for use with these accounts.
Guys, can you go back one slide real quick?
Yeah.
So, where am I looking here? I'm looking at the second row of icons, the second column of icons, the premium only plan. That's a special type of Section 125 cafeteria plan that iSolved can help you and your small groups set up. And there's lots of reasons to like that plan, mostly because if you do want to offer an FSA, the cafeteria plan kind of goes hand in hand with each other. And to kind of plug some cost savings for you, any group who does administer their FSA or hire iSolve to do administer their FSAs gets the premium only plan included, the documentation for that plan included as part of that proposal at no additional cost. And that's a really cool vehicle for you all as benefits pros because then that really unlocks you a lot of new benefit strategies once you have that section one or the group some benefit strategies when you have that 125 in place. You can have all health premiums come, as part of that cafeteria plan. The employee portion of that is pre-tax. The dental premium, whatever employee portion would be pre-tax. Same for vision and other supplemental benefits as well. That gives the group a way to reduce their tax burden, reduces the tax burden on the employees. So Uncle Sam rather takes a little bit less of everyone's money. That paints you in a really good light and helps you retain those groups going forward. So don't sleep on that as a solution. We'll talk more about that as we find more ways to bring that to the forefront with you. But it's out there. It's an option if you're not already using it. Saving money, providing more benefits is a great way to really keep the groups that you have and attract new groups as well.
That's what keeps my agent employed with me. Whenever she's like, oh, she hits me beforehand with, oh, here's how you can save money on your auto insurance if we just go to, I'm like, all right, sold, done. So, that is about just about everything we have for you on consumer-driven health accounts. If we want to update your knowledge for this year and kind of gloss over the ins and outs of these types of plans. So that brings us back to the chart that we started with, the three types of accounts, who can contribute, what they do, and when you can use them, and a little bit of how you can use them on your screen right now. So if I were to screenshot and save anything from this course today, I would save this chart and kind of just know the things that changed for this year, and keep an eye out for any changes that might happen in case some of those things that are being voted on or going through our government system currently do go into effect. You are ready. And of course, as you know, that Randy and I, every morning, not on Sundays though, I skip Sundays, I'm not going to lie, but up to every morning, I refresh my news screens and I talk about, or I go look at and talk about, usually do talk about with Randy every morning, what is changing in the world and what we can put into these webinars for you. So tune in, keep your eyes peeled to the training calendar and to the things that we do so that you can stay updated, even if you don't want to be like Randy and I refreshing the news every morning. And that brings us to the end of our show today. So if you want to stay on top of the news, you could also subscribe to our LinkedIn account, where we post multiple times a day the things that we see and hear in the health insurance world. You could email us directly at learningandactionbenefits.com. You could also contact your account manager. Some of them are here with us today. And you could call us. That is our main line. You talk to our wonderful, wonderful Brenda, and she will put you through to someone who can help you. Next week, we will be talking about dental and vision. And then we have a Beam rep coming up to talk to you more about our newest carrier partner, Beam, dental and vision and long-term care and short-term and all sorts of other ancillary benefits. I can't even remember them all off the top of my head. They do so many. Randy, is there anything I missed or anything you want to say to the people or anything at all before we let them go?
No, I do want to say that we're excited for that new partnership for Beam. If you were at all curious about other dental visions out there, we really like the way they compete generally well on price, but also the flexibility in that you can build your own dental plan. You can build the higher maximum if you want to, build ortho in, figure out whether they're going to use usual and customary rates or maximum allowable charges as if people go out of network. There's a lot of stuff you can do to really provide the solution that your employers might want, rather than whatever you can, kind of scrape up with, whatever dental might be offered by a major medical carrier in the area. So a lot of potential there, lots of potential to couple those with 125 accounts going forward here as well. Really exciting time to be a co-broker here with Action Benefits. You're going to see a lot of new stuff with us and from us in 2026 to help you grow your business and keep the business you have as well.
Yeah, their Beam's quoting tool almost as fun as coverage for companies, almost as fun. But that's only because my friends made coverage for companies. So it's really hard to compete for me with the things my friends made, right? Okay, so that's about everything that we have for you today. If you have any questions that we did not cover, please go ahead and throw those in the chat and we will address them. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Stay warm. Like we said before, there's some snow coming up, so just stay warm and have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you next Wednesday.